right. Welcome and welcome and welcome to the first podcast of Digital Shenanigans. So, largely curious about what this forum does, that videos do and do not. And true to the original intention of the channel, I have used a bit of AI to get started with the podcast, but I do feel like a little ethically weird about generating the whole scripts. Definitely welcome you to debate me on that. But I do want to be transparent because this is kind of a channel, at least the project I'm on is a channel about AI. So no intention to keep secrets here. So I am really curious about what AI has to say about reasons that content creators should be using it. So I did ask ChatGPT to send me 10 reasons that it thinks we should be using it. And I'm just going to read those for you and then respond. So for the sake of organization, we're going to have number 1, improved efficiency, 2, enhanced productivity, 3, personalization, 4, content optimization, 5, content curation, 6, language translation, 7, voice assistants and chatbots, 8, data-driven decision making, say that 10 times fast, 9, content quality enhancement, and 10, innovative content formats. So that is what you can look forward to. And ChatGPT started us off with this very small introduction to its response saying there are several compelling reasons why content creators should consider using AI in their work. So these reasons are compelling. I'm interested to get started. Let's jump right in. So number 1, improved efficiency. I'm going to read straight from its generated response. AI can assist with idea generation, research, and data analysis, enabling creators to produce content more quickly and effectively. And I'll start right there. If you've seen the first 10 videos and the response to them on my channel, you'll know that content generation, editing, these are definitely things that I feel I've benefited from. And I'm actually just realizing right now that I read, instead of improved efficiency number 1, I just read enhanced productivity, but let's just roll with it and switch the order. So idea generation, research, and data analysis. I've definitely experienced idea generation in terms of enhanced productivity. Research and data analysis, that I'm wondering if that's referring to software that I haven't noticed or haven't made use of, because I don't feel like it's explicit. The research and data analysis, I am being sort of exposed to subjective data, I suppose. A little bit of quantitative, if I say, for example, this topic or this genre, let's say humor, which is a big part of my research right now. Humor maybe is coming up quantitatively because I see the same joke repeated this number of times. But I would say for me, data analysis and research aren't landing for me quite as much as idea generation at this point, and I'm still very new to it. Producing content more quickly and effectively, definitely. The only place that I've struggled with the quickness, I would say, that I hoped for and expected even, is going to be in the area of caption, of auto caption software. So you might have heard me say in another video that I did have to go and edit quite a bit of text, really about 20%, which the amount of time it took made me think that I could have been more productive if I had just, or equally productive if I had just uploaded the captions manually. So in terms of enhanced productivity, a big yes, but just with some nuance. So let's jump back to number 1 and I'll read that out. So that was 2, enhanced productivity. Number 1 is going to be improved efficiency. AI tools can automate repetitive tasks such as content generation, editing, and distribution, allowing creators to focus on more creative aspects of their work. This is interesting, and I think, as with number 2, some of it is a big yes, and some of it I'm not quite sure yet. In terms of automating repetitive tasks such as content generation, editing, and distribution, I suppose the editing piece, Clipchamp has been a big support for me there, and the channel's not monetized, so I'm not, being paid to say any of this, but I have found a lot of their features, the templates, across other sources like in video and even YouTube itself, the auto-generated music samples or the auto-paired music samples. That's been pretty helpful. That's been a piece that I haven't thought about as much. I love music. I'm really fascinated by the AI's ability to pair a theme with another theme, right? So the theme of the music with the theme of the video, that it extrapolates from the text. So the more I'm sort of talking myself through it, the more I see, yeah, that repetitive task of matching is very useful. I haven't noticed much use in terms of distribution, maybe just the YouTube algorithm itself. I mean, that is a form of distribution for sure that I'm not touching. And so, in terms of focusing on more creative aspects of the work, it's tricky, right? The line I'm walking here with AI and content creation is um, one of how much creativity am I bringing to the table? What kind of creativity am I bringing to the table? Is it opening new thoughts up? Is it a collaboration? Is it subsuming? And I think really it's all of that. It's all of that together. And so that's really why I'm calling this larger project in the works, one of exploration, one of adventure, one of sort of figuring out, what are the creative aspects of the work? Because I think AI has the ability to change that answer. We're going to jump to number 3, personalization. So that reads, AI algorithms can analyze audience data to understand preferences and deliver personalized content recommendations, helping creators engage their audience on a deeper level. So, this again, I would say, goes back to very specifically what YouTube is doing with the content that it's pushing out. I can see, on the back end analytics that the algorithm is quote unquote making decisions based on audience engagement. It's fascinating to watch. It definitely gives content creators the ability to engage on a deeper level because it's just kind of a real time, in some cases, collection of a high level of, in some cases, very detailed data. So it's fascinating to get to kind of learn this information in real time rather than needing to, say, put out a survey through a research department and hope that you phrased everything in the right way to get the right kind of data and then analyze that data on top of that. Let's see if there's anything else that it's kind of mentioning here. This is maybe a little different, but I'm thinking about in the software when I'm doing text to video, especially, there's got to be something in there implicitly, I believe, that's connecting preference and personalized content. The video in some cases is personalized to the text, and I believe there's probably some statistical relevance or underpinning that's bringing some of these images to the surface. That there's a reason why some of these images are more likely to even be in the database in the first place. So this one, personalization, is for now in my early stages, a little bit more on the back end, what happens with the content I make, not necessarily, in my opinion, about what's happening in those very specific initial design stages. We're going to jump now to number 4, content optimization. And this one reads, AI-powered tools can analyze and optimize content for search engine optimization, otherwise known as SEO, and ensuring higher visibility and discoverability for creators' work. So to me, this really just links back to number 2 and 3 of enhanced productivity, or rather, number 1, improved efficiency, and 3, personalization. So AI-powered tools can analyze and optimize content. Again, I think that some of the text that's being generated through specifically ChatGPT, which I've leaned heavily into, I think some of that text has already come from analyzed and optimized content, right? Because it's taken in a ton of data and then it's distilled that data into the most likely response to a question or the most reasonable answer in context to a certain request. So there's already this distillation, this summarization that I think the text generators especially are making use of. And I would echo, back to the statistical relevance of certain images and then matching those. But I'm going to have to really think more about content optimization. Obviously, for those of you listening as creators, wanting higher visibility and discoverability for your work is going to be of prime importance. So please do weigh in if you're aware of this specific benefit. As I learn, as you learn, as we all learn together, because whether or not you're a new creator, obviously you're well, I would say I assume that most of you are going to want higher visibility and discoverability of new content, of existing content, just to find new markets, so on and so forth. With that, we're going to go to number 6, language translation. AI translation tools can facilitate communication with a global audience by quickly and accurately translating content into different languages. For me, this is one of the most compelling arguments that I've heard. And I would say global, let's use that literally, thinking about people around the globe, but then also maybe a little bit more figuratively, where we can think of local audiences who will continue to benefit from having access to multiple languages. And that language, I would say, is even going to involve captioning. So for me, this has application to folks who are in the business world, to folks who are in the educational and nonprofit worlds. This is most relevant, I think, in my work as an e-learning specialist and an instructional designer. So I push content out to multiple ages, folks from multiple backgrounds, multiple, first and learned languages, as well as different reading levels. And so I would say reading level is perhaps not quite as linked to language translation as it might be to, let's say, content quality enhancement. But let's just make the argument too that there are um, there are artificial intelligence softwares that can help you bring your text to a reading level that's going to help make it more accessible to your audience than the reading level that you may be writing in. I think too that when we think about accessibility and broadening messages into markets, let's try to realize that there is a benefit to that. There's a benefit if you're looking through, a business lens of driving engagement to different markets. There's a benefit of delivering more tailored content in a modality that works for your customers and for your clients. And so, however you want to frame it, I really only see this as a benefit. Number 7, voice assistants and chatbots. So by incorporating AI-driven voice assistants or chatbots, creators can offer interactive and personalized experiences to their audience, enhancing engagement and user satisfaction. This one I think in my instructional design work is a little bit, God, what's the word? It has invited the most criticism, I would say, of anything on this list. Not necessarily the most resistance, but I think chatbots can really be seen as, removing that customer service experience that requires a certain degree of nuance. At the same time, there are reasons why sites and books and programs have FAQs, frequently asked questions, right? Again, if we want to think about statistics and AI, there are questions that 10, 20, 50, 70% of your audience base or your user base, your new clientele are going to be interested in. And if you can outsource that to a chat box with a simple yes or no or go here answer, you free up the people on your team to actually work in that customer service capacity, whether it's you running a solo program or you've got a large team that needs to be really mindful of how they're using their time. And I think it's interesting that they say creators can offer interactive and personalized experiences, enhancing engagement and user satisfaction. So, as a designer, for me, this is really where user experience comes in. UX and UI are kind of a new field, or maybe just a new name for something that's existed for a while. At least it's somewhat new on my radar, but I would say this is the most UX, UI ish element that I feel like I've seen on the list so far. And I do think it's worth considering heavily here that if you want to offload the customer service with voice assistants or chatbots, make sure that those voice assistants are, clear and understandable, and that the chatbots aren't sending people in circles, right? I don't know if you've had the experience of a chatbot, uh, giving you a number, and then the phone chatbot or voice assistance gives you the chat. And so you're in an infinite loop, and it's not solving your problem, and that's giving you, a negative experience with whatever brand you're working with. So you've had the experiences that can inform your designs, or whether or not you agree with this. Again, for me, as long as the user experience is really thought through and there's beta testing and so forth before a complete full launch, then I think these are pretty wise to use for those FAQs, for those frequently asked questions and journeys that especially your new folks might be going on. Number 8, data driven decision making. Again, I really find that fun to say. Good user experience of that sentence. So, AI can analyze audience behavior, engagement metrics, and market trends, providing creators with valuable insights to inform their content strategies and optimize their creative process. I'm going to call this what it is and say this is a repetition of possibly number 3, personalization, and number 4, content optimization. And the meta part of the project is to critique AI in and of itself, right? So you do see this sometimes with the chat or with the text generators is kind of a repetition of a theme, or even of something. If you ask for a list in another list, you'll get the same item on both lists. So that is a weakness, right, in using these script generators, or rather these list generators. So keep that in mind. But let's see if there's anything new that we can find in it. So data-driven decision making. I would say that word optimize is standing out to me. Inform their content strategies and optimize their creative process. I think that reminds me the most of, there was something about like creativity, opening up creativity. But I guess it's that optimization piece that's kind of the most interesting to me. Is it's not just that you're receiving all of this information about the content itself, but you're receiving information about the audience. So maybe that's the most significant difference. Is above, they're sort of talking specifically about the material that you're making and the data on the material. Here they're talking about the audience's behavior. We know, working in this industry, working as creators, that the space between content and engagement is ambiguous. If it's a Venn diagram, sometimes it's hard to really separate out what is not in the middle. But I would say there's enough of a nuance here that I'm going to give the the AI the green light to say that those are slightly different points. So we're going to jump now to number 9. We are moving along. Content quality enhancement. AI-powered editing tools can help creators improve the quality of their content, suggesting improvements in grammar, style, and structure, leading to more polished and professional outputs. This is very interesting. I agree the most with it, but also am getting stuck here on a couple words. I am a trained writer. I enjoy technical editing and copywriting and so on and so forth. So very specific words, I can just spend a ton of time with them. Having said that, improving the quality of their content, absolutely. I know that for me, audio editing, especially when you can parse out the different elements, right? So you don't just have video and audio together as one file type, but you have them separated. I've found that to be one of the most powerful content quality enhancers that AI has offered. And the suggestions too, it seems to note when there are gaps. For example, if there are large blank gaps in a video, it can jump in. In terms of grammar, so style and structure, I don't know if I've got as much experience there. The grammar and whether it's polished and professional, I will say that I think has really got to depend on the tone of what you're trying to create. In some cases, having something understood to be polished and professional might actually work against your brand. So that's why I hesitated a little bit at the beginning. But yeah, I think the editing tools are the best case so far for artificial intelligence. I do make a distinction between, AI created and AI assisted. For me, much of the content that I think I'll be making moving forward is AI assisted. So it will not be 100% created by the AI, accepted, and then distributed. It will be a sort of template or some sort of um, beginning creation, I suppose, just to respond to. And it itself can respond to itself, right? You can use one AI generator and one AI editor and use the editor to sort of clean up the rough spots of the generator. It's a really fascinating relationship, but I mean, you can see right from that relationship that AI is this large ecosystem with different functions across different tools and different softwares. So as you start to dive in and really understand more and more those features and functions and when you can use what, I think you'll have a better engagement with AI as a content creator. Number 10, innovative content formats. AI technologies such as virtual reality or VR and augmented reality or AR can enable creators to explore new and immersive content formats, offering unique and engaging experiences to their audience. I think this is fascinating. I think, simulation as a exploratory space is in some cases overutilized and in some cases underutilized. And we can perhaps go into the overutilization at some point, but trying to work with the AI suggestions here and making the case that AI should or is a positive tool to be used by content creators. Let's think about this a little bit. So, creators can explore new and immersive content formats, offering unique and engaging experiences to their audience. And this is one of the most incredible things, right, about certain forms of media, animation, video that's not totally grounded in realism, is that you can absolutely create worlds that your audience can enter and you yourself as the designer and sort of simulate new experiences. One of my first videos that I made was called Two Potatoes Discuss a Washing Machine on Jupiter. And so I had imagined that the the AI was going to put two potatoes with like a space themed background, and they're just having a chat. They're just sitting on lawn chairs on Jupiter. I don't know if that would work with the gravitational situation up there, but that's what I pictured, right? So, in what realm of this existence am I going to actually witness that outside of AI generated content or content that I myself am creating from scratch, and then uploading into a video format. And then once I hand that to the viewer, they themselves get to experience it completely, right? Because they're not editing it. They get to experience it completely as an immersive world, an immersive experience, from a grounded place, whether they're sitting watching on their chair or on the train or whatever. They get to sort of enter a new world. And the more that I work in these software systems, the more I start to think of them as fiction, because there is a little bit that's grounded in the present world, and then there's some that's this imaginative space, with the exception that you're viewing it rather than imagining it. So it's a fascinating relationship between AI and fiction that I didn't expect. So these are innovative content formats, but in many ways, they're not necessarily unfamiliar in the way that they manifest, which is to say, they're invitations to the imagination to have an experience that might not be physically possible, statistically likely, or even literally possible. I don't know that we're going to see personified potatoes like walking around talking about washing machines. I would call that literally impossible, right? But with AI, we can make something like that happen. And I think unique and engaging is going to be a really intriguing manifestation of AI, because in some cases, as discussed earlier, you're going to get really common, frequent, familiar things generated um, from these, for example, script creators or text creators. But then in other cases, maybe visually, you're going to get like completely new environments. So you might have really common items strewn together, so those items will be familiar, but they're going to create something completely new. So I do think AI supported content runs the gamut from, hey, this is really familiar, to, wow, that's 100% new. I have never experienced it before. That's a very unique, original thing. And so it's impressive to me that AI has been able to have that familiarity and novelty built in. So the AI generated content here is giving us a summary. Ultimately, leveraging AI can empower content creators to streamline their workflow, personalize their content, and make data driven decisions, leading to more effective and impactful creations. And what I think is interesting here is it's taken into account that the content creator is the creator of the content. So it's focusing on streamlining workflow, so that efficiency piece, personalizing the content, and making data driven decisions. So perhaps those are both directed toward the audience, although I've got a buddy who mentioned that the AI quote unquote knows her voice by now. So, maybe there is some personalization that I can dip into um, down the road as I interact with the software more, and leading to more effective and impactful creations. And I would say, for you listening, decide for yourself, what is effective and what is impactful. And that might be different from project to project. For me, effective and impactful on this project are: have I communicated clearly, perhaps the strengths and the limitations of certain software systems? And impactful, honestly, one of the biggest things that I want for myself and for my audience is, if you're a teacher, if you're an e-learning specialist, if you're in learning and development, if you're an instructional designer, for you to really start moving into the AI space, whether that's through exploration with one software or more, whether that's through intentional creation, whether that's through a seminar or a podcast like this, for you to really open up to learning about this, especially if it's not something that you envisioned yourself using. I know that for me, I've dabbled a little bit with technology, and of course, in e-learning, you're creating, videos and one pagers and one offs and so on. So tech has always been a pretty fundamental part of educating. Again, whether you're in corporate training or in K through 12 or in a nonprofit or some blend of all of those. So for me, tech has pretty much always been a tool on the table, but it's been a small tool, right? And now there's this huge suite of tools, and I really felt like I was at a crossroads before this project where, I could sort of stay where I was and optimize my performance and my competence on and with the tools in my toolkit, or tools that were sort of adjacent to that reminded me of those tools in my toolkit. Or I could step into what is a pretty huge world. And so I decided to step into what was a pretty huge world. And I can say that if you are feeling that way too, any sort of like, mild anticipation or hesitation about taking on AI learning, whether it's just as like a personal passion project or something that you're doing intentionally to build up your career skills, or simply out of curiosity, I would say jump into design with one of the software systems, that you feel comfortable with. And you can start with a text generator. You can start with software that generates video from text. You can make use of a software that gives you, long videos or short templates. Some of them have, people or avatars speaking into the camera. Some of them have nature themed videos or geometric shapes, that are flying about. So there's already a lot of customization built into that. Maybe that's what the personalization piece means. But, you can sort of think of it as, let's say, a forest with many paths, and you look down each path and decide which one you like. And so coming out of that, hopefully, you can also have an effective and impactful set of objectives for yourself. I think if you are a goal oriented person, maybe take the week and get a free trial for one software, go in and do, let's say, 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes of design, and just sit back and let yourself process it. Make a list of the pros and cons, process your experience of the design work itself, the content, but then also, inside the platform itself, were things easy to find? Did it make sense? Was it intuitive? Did it do what you asked you to? And why not? So these are some of the questions that I asked myself and answered for myself as I was moving through this content. And in so doing, it became easier to build an internal framework for different software platforms and across them. And again, I'm very, very new to this space, at least the space that's called AI. Tech, I've got familiarity there. AI, which I would say is a little distinctly different, is new. But that's at least how I started um, my explorations here. Hopefully that will help you if you've got other ideas about, beginners especially, helping to invite them into the space in a way that's positive for them and productive for them. Please feel free to let us know. And thank you for listening to the first podcast of Digital Shenanigans. This wasn't quite a shenanigan, but that's actually okay. I think maybe if 40% of the content is non-shenanigan, I think maybe we can give it a pass. But that is all for now, and I will see you soon.